We'll start like this. What's up, dude? How are you?
Great, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, it's amazing to meet people, like-minded people from Twitter, and I'm really glad you reached out. Really looking forward to this conversation. So I guess the way we can start is if you want to just introduce how you or introduce yourself and how you got involved in Bitcoin, how you found Bitcoin.
Sure. Yeah. My Twitter handle is Hartzler. I'll just go by that. I yeah, the first introduction that I kind of had to this space was end of 2020. I just was looking for answers. I think like a lot of us, just looking for something outside of this insanity that we've all been just walking around. And just seeing people change like right before your eyes, and just looking for something different out there that people might find valuable, and I guess a new platform. And I was thinking on the more I think the political realm, how do we steer this ship in the right direction. But I kind of stumbled on Bitcoin, actually on Tim Ferriss's podcast. Just the mention of it, of being able to have self-sovereignty and a money that cannot be confiscated. And that like just perked my ears up. I'm like, oh, okay. That's kind of right up my alley. And since that day, I've done nothing but tumble down the rabbit hole, if you will. And that's kind of what led me to this space, and really introduced me to just some incredible people like yourself, Valis, Breedlove. A lot of these guys have just, it's like drinking out of a fire hose, if you will be. So that's kind of what got me into this space. And now my I think my focus has shifted to how can I give back? How can I contribute? How can I be almost a logos, if you would, if we are all created and with a unique capabilities, it is up to all of us to be able to find that and then communicate it well. And that's been I feel like a call that I've had for quite some time, but have never stepped up to the plate. And this is my feeble attempt of trying to try to understand the hero in all of us, if you will, the righteousness within all of us, of how do you take on the chaos that surrounds, and be able to really harness that and make it to a worthwhile life. And I think that's really the mission that I've tried to understand and develop. So
Wow, that's incredible. So you're new to Bitcoin, fairly new. I mean, if you've just
yeah.
discovered it in
Yep.
2020, I mean, you're
Yep.
pretty,
Just kind of just finished my rookie year. So going
yeah.
into
I mean,
going to year two. So
that's pretty incredible for you to be here already, as far as your understanding, um, from a practical perspective, as well as from a much more, I would say, deeper understanding of what Bitcoin is and what it represents. And I guess we'll get into that, but I just
yeah.
want to go back and touch on something real quick. You mentioned Breedlove and Valis. Um, these are really incredible people who are out there exploring this territory, this new territory, right? In how Bitcoin really realigns us to our personal sovereignty. And I'm so grateful for people like them who are out there doing the hard work. Um, it is, in a way, like the hero's journey. They're out there
Mhm.
exploring these ideas and then coming back and helping us gain a much more broader and fulfilling understanding of what this is and how it impacts us and our reality. And man, I just feel like I'm piggybacking off of their their insights, and it's just incredible. And
Mhm.
you know, I'm lucky to have met both of them, and I think that they're heroes. I think that they're heroes who are out there exploring this territory, and again bringing back those fruits in which they have discovered. And go ahead, did you want to say something?
No, I just couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and so what they've done is they've created a path for others to go down and explore different rabbit holes for their own sake, and
Right.
I think that's what we're all doing now. And I think especially with Bitcoin, it has so many intersectionalities, so many crossovers, that it's really, there's a lot there to understand and to make sense of. But when you go down those rabbit holes, you get a much more broader understanding of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's something that's been lacking for so long. We've all been living in this fiat induced reality where for a lot of us, we have been led down paths which are not aligned with our overall personal sovereignty or our overall vision of who we would like to be. And it's because we've been caught up in these traps. Either they're materialistic traps, they're debt traps, all these gotchas out there. And so, yeah, just exploring exactly what has been going on and how Bitcoin fixes this, that exploration in itself is transformative. And so here we are. So
it's too much to explain almost. And that's why I like floundered in trying to even struggle to comprehend some of the concepts that we're running, and that's the seeing John Vallis write that recent article was a huge piece of like, we almost need to wrestle with this stuff to be able to create scaffolding, if you will, like a frame to be able to start unpacking some of these ideas. And because there's so much information, going through each of us, that you almost need to have shortcuts to different topics and different ideas. And especially that of, okay, Bitcoin encompasses money. It encompasses sovereignty. It encompasses seeking truth. It encompasses religion and God and family, and so many different topics that in of themselves are, you could commit your life to each one of those, specifically, but now you have a framework that allows capacity to people to enter and to really find their personality through. And I think exploring that has been immensely satisfying.
Awesome. Yeah. And so what area, let's say, are you like particularly focused on now, as far as your exploration into Bitcoin?
So I think the thing that's piqued my interest really is I've been a huge fan of Peterson over the last couple years. His take on God and his framing of faith and Christianity has been immensely helpful for myself. And I see the overlap of having a almost an operating system by which we all participate in, and how much I would say especially over the last couple of years, but I would say probably since 2008 to 10, kind of that area, like post the market crash, that you can see things just ratcheting up and deteriorating. You can just see it. You can just see it in people. People have changed. And like, it's almost like a question of like, what is happening with us psychologically, internally. And we have no words to articulate this phenomenon. I think that all of us inherently feel, but can just kind of push aside, say, well, modern world is changing, or that's just the way things are now. And well, I just, I guess I just have to grin and bear it. And I'm at that point where like, no, not doing it, not doing it anymore. I've always dreamed of a better life, and this modern life is not doing it. It is not. I would say, in a sense, making anyone's life better. If from a wholeness, spiritual and all encompassing standpoint, it's fragment us to like be one-minded in that kind of that fiat game of only being focused on money, only being focused on, all right, I got to get up, got to go work for the man, get a couple bucks so I can maybe like live out my last days, maybe tipping my toes in the sand somewhere. Like that's what the American dream has boiled down to. And it's flat out, I would say just gross. And I want nothing to do with that. And so I think rediscovering, right, there has to be a convergence of faith and spirituality, of wholeness, and articulating a way of being that all of us can participate in. And I really believe like this is the key to kind of unlocking that, because I think money is a language, like what Breedlove and Valis say. I really believe it is a physical representation of a language of value that we've been missing for so long. And trying to understand and explore that, of how Christianity probably fulfilled that role for quite some time, but I think probably broke in the late 1800s with I would say the theory of evolution, I would say. And you kind of see that giving way to the rise of the state. Was Nietzsche's confession was like, God is dead. Like, our system broke, I believe, kind of at that point. Our system of faith and a cohesive way to unite and come together had been broken. The closed system, there was hyperinflation, if you will, on our ability to understand God, nature, and ourselves. That broke. And what it led to was the awful things that we see now. Some good, there, it's not all bad. There's been some amazing things that's happened out of it, and we have to recognize it. But the way it's going is not good. And what can we do, as a group of people, to be able to try to understand this thing and then unite and make the world a better place? I mean, we're called to do that.
Yeah. So that was beautiful. And there's a lot there. And one of the aspects that I want to touch on is this idea that we have lost meaning to our lives in a lot of ways, right? Yeah. We're all on this hamster wheel, just trying to make ends meet, because fiat has distorted the economy to the point where we can't even reap the fruits of our labor. Mm-hmm. And to add to that, we've been propagandized from an early age to really find value in materialism. Yes. And now we're starting to recognize that combination is very detrimental to our human spirit. And now there's this radical new technology that comes along that says, get off the hamster wheel, find fulfillment in saving the fruits of your labor. Because if you do so, your purchasing power will grow. So that expands your time preference. Now, when your time preference is expanded, you start making long-term plans. And then once you start making those long-term plans, you really have to wrestle with the question is, what is it that I want to do, with my time and my energy? What is it that I want to save this money towards? Is it a family? Is it a project? Well, what project, and to what ends, And so it's one of these things where we start asking ourselves really important questions that really get into the depth of our soul. And I think that's what's so amazing about Sound Money, and this instantiation of it is Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we really have a powerful tool to unshackle the human spirit and to create free markets. And I guess this is where we kind of get into John Vallis's piece. But I think when you have that combination, what ends up happening is you get a competition of value hierarchies. And from that, we can see some type of divine order start to emerge from that. But we've never had that before, because if fiat has distorted and tilted the scales to such a degree where it's given the money changers. Hello? No way. Hello? Man, they really don't want us talking. So I'm just going to finish off with that thought before we got cut off. So what I was saying is that for a long time, the influence of the money has been in the hands of central planners, and they've been able to wield unjust influence on society. So their morality, their ethics, all of that they're able to influence society with that, because the money has been centralized and in their control. Yeah. So I think that's a huge thing that's starting to change now with sound money, and we will see what transpires from it. We'll see what comes about. But for Bitcoiners, I think they imagine a future which is much more wholesome than what we have now.
Well, it really does speak to when you have these ripple effects of decisions that are outside of your own control, of how it demoralizes the individual and individual communities as well. They don't have the ability to, or the leverage to be able to solve their own problems. So everything is outsourced to, the powers that be, the boss or the governor or X, Y, and Z, and everything is outside of your own control. And I think it's you can see it on people's just their daily life. So they're just completely defeated. And I think it's one of the most harming effects that we have in society, that people cannot solve their own problems, and the mechanism to do so is ripped away from them.
Oh, it's so out of touch. We're so out of reach. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I agree. That's one of the big aspects about it, is that the mechanism in which we use to solve society's problems is so out of reach from the average day, every person.
Yes. We're so far removed from that gap. And that's where, I'll throw in the piece of nature too. The reality of nature, this is kind of a funny anecdote. Have you ever watched the series Alone?
Have not watched it.
Highly, highly recommend you watch it. And I think it should be a prerequisite for everyone. I guess kind of going down this piece or just questioning humanity or kind of our place in it. Unbridled nature without the nerf that we've placed on it is a ruthless beast that is out to kill you at all times. And we have tamed that thing. And people are so insulated from the reality of what nature actually is. And to me, I think it's one of the greatest sins that we've participated in, is this inability to have this connection with nature itself, to understand the beauty, but the terror that emplaces it. And I think having that viewpoint is so important, because yes, it's beautiful. The beach is wonderful. The mountains are gorgeous. The animals are, seem to play in harmony. But if a tiger is stalking you in the jungle, or you're in the jaws of a bear, like the amount of terror and fear and anxiety that must lurk on all of us, is something to behold. And people are completely desensitized from that. I grew up on a farm as a kid and got to see firsthand of the brutality of nature. And that's just a farm, let alone being out in the wilderness somewhere and having to fight for your life. It's a beautiful thing that we've tamed it, but it's come to bite us right in our butt, really.
Are you saying because it's made us soft and disconnected from what it is to be actually alive and be human and be vulnerable?
Yes. And the sense of, like, from a mythology standpoint, like, we are part of nature. We are animals in some sense, but we've transcended that through consciousness and awareness that no other animal really has participated in. And I think for that's why human beings are sacred, is because of our ability to transcend. And just the lower brain, just reactions. We're able to participate in groups, able to think on our feet and problem solve, which no other animal can really do at our level. And that, has kind of, like you said, made us soft, made us weak, made us think that we've won, think that we've defeated this thing. And I think that the not having that challenge, or the pressure that puts on you, we've sheltered ourselves from it. But I think it's probably one of the greatest gifts we've had for quite some time. And then thought that, oh, well, why can't everything just be nice all the time? Why can't we just all have everything that we want and we'll be satisfied? It's absolutely like the total opposite. Like, you've just ruined the mechanism by which value creation stems.
Sure. You destroyed that in which you measure value from, right? And which
Yep.
is scarcity. And
Yeah.
that understanding of that your life is itself scarce, you now have a distortion in your ability to calculate value. And that maybe, perhaps, I'm just speculating here, why we find so many people living lives of destruction, of self-sabotage, because
Yes.
they have not properly calculated the scarcity of their time, because they have been so sheltered and pampered and coddled from the hardships of life. And so I think that's one of the things that Bitcoin as well really exposes people. And again, expanding, I think we can shift this into the idea of death itself and how that has been removed from society. And people, I'm seeing it in elderly folks, personally, they have not contemplated or thought about their death. And because of that, they have reached the end of their life with torment, I think, because they have regrets of not living a fulfilled life, to a large extent. I might be projecting here my own interpretation of what's happening, but there's no doubt that we've had death removed from society, and we do not have a relationship with it anymore. And again, I think that's what the expansion of time preference does, is it allows you to internalize your own death and even think beyond it. And so that helps you prepare for it. That helps you understand your time value, because now you understand life is scarce. And so again, these are all of the transformative effects that happen when you adopt sound money as your standard.
Yeah, and I mean, the Greeks had, memento mori for a reason. It was a grounding piece that, And I fall prey to this all the time too, of the wish of like, oh, I just wish this season of life would be over, or we could just go through this or that. And it's almost like you're pulling the string to just get to the good, but you fail to realize that the good is overcoming the present situation and choosing to be heroic, or choosing to stand up in the face of difficulty in the present.
Opening
And
yourself up to learn the lessons,
yeah,
and
yeah,
using that difficulty to grow spiritually as a person,
yeah,
I think is a big part of our development that has been lost, just from my own perspective. Because I know for me, I always saw failure as something that was, or I'm shifting over to failure, but we can talk about hardships in general, right? As something that was to be avoided. But really, that suffering that comes from it is what defines who we are.
yeah, man, I've been on that kick too. The failure piece is wrecked me, I think, in the last couple years, because my whole viewpoint was it don't fail. Do everything in your possible like grasp or your ability to not fail. And what that's done is make people anxious, terrified. They feel out of control. But if you almost have a relationship with failure, and almost a posture of like the gleaning, or it's the refining piece, that you're like, you are a chunk of stone and you're throwing it into the fire, and you're seeing what rises to the top. You're seeing the cream, the goodness. This is another agricultural analogy, but like, I grew up on a dairy farm, and when you take, milk and you let it set or rest, the cream always rises to the top. The most valuable thing always separates itself from the rest of the product. And that's the most valuable, the most scarce piece of dairy products, is the cream itself. And I think that's what we've lacked in humanity, a trial, a ritual, an ability to go through as a society, and our cultures itself, to go through that testing ground where we celebrate failure, not in the sense of failure for the sake of failure, but the lessons learned and gleaned and felt out of that, is a catastrophic, I think, impact that's rippled. We've lost the wisdom, we've lost the sense of that ritual, to some sense. Yeah.
Sure. So that mindset, even that mindset, is something which is so primary to someone's personal development in achieving the best version of themselves, or self-actualization, right? And now it's lost. It's no longer a mechanism
Mm-hmm.
that is used, because people are so terrified of the social ramifications of, even the psychological ramifications of failure, because they
Mm-hmm.
don't have a proper framework
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
analyze it.
And what is the measure of people's success with failure now? It's by dirty money. I mean, that's
Dirty
what
money
we've,
and propaganda that comes from
yeah,
the printing press.
or status from
Yes.
people that have dirty money. And it's only through this singular filter that we've been able to identify success. Really, we've defined it, and and I think a lot of us are I've picked up on it for quite some time, but never had the words to articulate that. But I was so jaded by the corporations and work itself that, I mean, it just eats your, like I told Valis, like, it's a place where souls go to die so many ways. Like it's a harvesting factory of people's energy and their spirit, really.
And if you look at society, it's entirely set up to harvest those people into corporate America.
Correct. Yes.
Like the way our entire lifestyle is set up, from birth to all the way to retirement, right? It is to feed the machine,
Mm-hmm.
and to keep people working. And now
Mm-hmm.
what we're recognizing is that the machine is falling apart, and now
Mm-hmm.
there's so many people who are waking up at the same time and being like, okay, what is actually happening here? Because all the
Right.
narratives that I've been told, work hard, go to school, get a job, get a mortgage, retire, all of that now seems to be falling apart. It just doesn't make sense for me from a practical level to take out a $500,000 mortgage when I'm making $40,000 a year as a school teacher,
Right.
like that.
Right.
So people are now waking up and rethinking things, and I think this is what we're seeing happen around Bitcoin. There's a convergence there where people who are getting red pilled are looking for answers, and there, the only thing that is stable enough for them to anchor onto right now is Bitcoin. And to an
Mm-hmm.
extent, religion as well. I do see a revival in faith as well
Yeah.
in Christ and the morals and principles that come from Christianity. So both those things, it's very interesting to see what's happening right now from
Mm-hmm.
people waking up from that spell that they've been put under, and now trying to grab onto those things that actually provide some type of answers and meaning to life.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at it like Bitcoin is almost a an operating system. It can be for I think I think it's like this. I look at human beings almost like this reductionist standpoint, just to make to try to understand it better. But we really are hard, like a computer hardware perspective. Like we are this machine that is working, and we've been lacking these operating systems to be able to coherently communicate and integrate with one another. And I think that's what religion had served for such a long time, was the aspect of it embodied hope and faith and prosperity and love and generosity and all the incredible virtues that we've distilled over thousands of years into a easy to understand and applicable culture. And that's just been broken over the last 150 to 200 years, I think. And it's died a slow death. I think all of the meaning and the purpose is still, it lies within it. And that's why I think I'm so interested in, it's like, okay, Bitcoin can be a scaffolding by which we can transfer some of those pieces onto a more cohesive system where you're not separate. Because I think in like the religion standpoint, like money is treated as is the vector by which corruption can travel upon. And so it's always been this division of money and church to their best avail, but it time and time it gets corrupted. And now to be able to integrate the religion, and not in the sense of like you have to believe, but a like Jordan Peterson puts it so well. He says that like we are all products of that state, by that type of thinking, by the memes, by the mythology of Christianity, at least in the Western world. We are a product of these incredibly complex systems that have been able to have this incredible meaning distilled down into small short stories, really, and put across the whole biblical text. And we are a product of that. And to be able to integrate that meaning and that value into something that now can be interchanged with on a monetary standpoint without the corruption, I think is the like I said, the piece of the money thing is in itself a massive rabbit hole. But I think where you'll get the masses of people is to be able to create a structure by which, if you integrate this into your life, you can start making these meaningful changes, and you have an incentive now, almost in a token standpoint, that you can retrain yourself almost. And I'm a product of it. It's like it's re-taught me how to interact with the world and allow me to distill my true self in a way from the onslaught of just the yes man mentality, if you would.
So Man, there's so much there that I want to explore. I don't know if I remembered all of them, but man, I just wanted to chime in on a lot of
Sometimes
them.
I just go too. So if I'm on a tangent, just like let's keep it more articulated.
No,
But
no, I like it. I like it. And I see these conversations as avenues to explore these kind of esoteric thoughts and to kind of dive deeper. So
Mhm.
by all means, go ahead. But I guess the first thing I'll touch on is I think Bitcoin is the orange pill, right? It is the um when someone wakes up to kind of the folly of the fiat system and they start looking for answers, right? So Bitcoin is there to provide them a certain understanding of reality in which they
Yeah.
haven't been exposed to before. So that's one aspect. Now, here's the issue, and this is the issue that I personally had to contend with, is I didn't have the proper frameworks and mental models to assess and make sense of reality. And so I had to go out there and search for it. It's be like, man, these people
Mm-hmm.
really have a articulate viewpoint of reality that I don't have. How are they thinking? What mechanisms are they using to derive a coherent sense of reality? Let me go explore that. And so then you get into first principles thinking, you get into probabilistic thinking, and you start just exploring all of these different ways in which you can assess reality. And that is a very empowering tool, because now it's not a simple binary way of looking at reality or having reality told to you and you have to accept that as a reality. Now you have the internal processes to interpret the information that's given to you and make a more sovereign calculation on whether what you're told matches reality or not. So that's one thing that I got from your conversation right now. And then there was another thing, but I think I forgot it. If you got anything to say off of that, I'd love to hear it.
No, I mean you couldn't be more right. I think this is where like what do you know the mystery of it all I think is really something to comprehend, because when I was younger I had this innate sense of what in the Bible they talk about, just like the fallen world, really. That has been a theme of humanity since the beginning of time, was this understanding of, all right, something is wrong here. So I don't know if it's unique to our times. I just think that it's been exploited to the nth degree, with little or no checks on it. And to your point of the first principles thinking and being able to make those internal decisions to get new information, to be able to distill it down and then compare it to the best comprehension of reality that we have. And I feel like, and maybe this was just my personality as a kid, but I detested school in so many ways, like absolutely hated it. And to your point, and this is what makes me kind of like chuckle, is like the fact that I was there against my will, like my walls were up the whole time. Didn't matter what stuff that they could feed me. I just was not interested because it was on their time. It was, here, learn this. If you don't learn it, you're an idiot, and here, we're going to test you if you know X, Y, and Z. And so maybe that's just my personality, but I like absolutely hated it. But now, like post education, post indoctrination, I can't get enough of it. Like I really can't. And from the first principles piece, I feel like I'm having to relearn so many of the important lessons that maybe I should have learned as a kid. From just a scientific perspective or psychological, it doesn't matter. There's so many important, deep topics that have just been covered up through the education system. Maybe again,
I think
through
it's
the.
I think
Go ahead.
sorry to interrupt, but
No,
I
no, no,
think
please.
I can add something here.
Yeah.
because I'm having to go back and relearn things, or actually learn things that I should have from my formative years. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's, again, going back to what we talked about regarding this kind of veil that fiat puts on your existence. You think, or I grew up thinking, that a lot of the lessons that I'm learning now were not important. Like, we've moved beyond that as a species.
Right.
Modernity.
We've already solved it. Don't worry about it. Let's go to the more complex stuff.
Exactly. So modernity has, in a lot of ways, taken us, separated us from those fundamental truths in which we can build our identity and our reality from. So I think what happened is that we got disconnected from the primal instincts in which we all are based off of, which
Yeah.
are ingrained in our DNA. And part of that is learning how to be a man. What is it even to be a man? What is it to be masculine? We used to know this because it was very obvious. We were the protectors and the providers of the tribe. But now modernity has provided abundance and safety. So what's our role now as men? And this is where I think you find a lot of the confusion. And now we have to reintegrate our identities as human beings into this new world, which our primal instincts haven't caught up with. And I think that's where a lot of the learning is taking place right now. That makes sense.
And I think like you and I, like, are examples of this. Like, the so many men out there are just swimming, just absolutely desperate for the wise leader and the king to put their arm around them and bring them along the journey. There's no mentorship. I mean, I don't want to use extremes. There's incredible men out there, incredible leaders, incredible people, that I think we need to give a voice to be able to integrate some of this stuff, because it's out there. It's just we've been maybe blinded or don't see the value in it.
I think part of also the problem is they've removed the spiritual aspect of life in their teachings, and
because
so
you can't measure it.
Exactly. But I think what we're doing right now is revisiting those ideas, but with the spiritual aspect, from the confines of God, and not like moral relativism or new ageism. And I think that idea of putting God at the top of your value hierarchy, putting God as your motivation to act, and this kind of goes again into John Vallis's piece, right? I think viewing the world from that dynamic is so much more meaningful. Now you can choose a mission that aligns, right? Aligns your actions to your belief structure. And that is much more powerful. Now, if you have a job that's chopping wood or something like that, right? You're no longer thinking of yourself as this, what am I doing here? I'm not happy with my job. You actually have purpose and meaning now to your job. Like, you're chopping wood for your family, to put food on a table for your family, because this is God's way. You're following God's commands. You're following God's divine order. And now the work that you do has a lot more meaning. You're not trapped in this fiat mindset where you're getting your perspective on what's valuable and what's not valuable from all the propaganda that's been disseminated through social media, that's all funded through fiat,
Right. Yeah. And it's like these Hunger Games of trying to impress people that you don't like, and buying things that you don't need. Like, it's just, that is the game that we've been playing for, post World War II, really. And it's just accelerated beyond recognition now. And I think bringing the humility back into the simplicity of life,
yes,
I think is so important. We've completely lost it. And I am, I participate in it, and it's almost like you have to decouple yourself and deprogram just the sheer vast amount of information and stuff and worry and confusion that you can participate in a daily basis. It is, Rogan says it best, and says we were not meant to ingest this much information ever. Like, our brain cannot handle this much. And not only that, it's just the fact of the onslaught of what is the right way. It is a vastly complex and difficult question. But I think that's where the, Vallis's point of like you said, ascending the hierarchy to where there is no other value greater than God, and God really encompasses in the Old Testament pieces, like you must fear God, but God is almost a father too. And it's kind of that duality of nature, of like the beauty yet the terror of it. It's like you have to respect and understand that the world that we are put in right now is out of our comprehension, and to be able to articulate that and have a place where you are both humbled yet inspired by the place that we all dwell in. And really, like, we are, since we are social creatures, is being able to have that energy flow between us without disruption. And I think, that's what's been the piece that I think I'm most interested in, is why can I jump on Twitter and Bitcoin and instantly feel a part of and connected with thousands of people just by simply listening to them for 10 or 15 minutes, like yourself. And, you just instantly connect with people on a spiritual or psychological level that's like, it really transcends rationality, if you would. And I think there's just being able to store and transfer that energy is something that art that we've lost so much of, and integrating that into our daily lives has been lost. And we've outsourced that energy to give to the state, to give to the corporation, to give to the people in exchange for this this is quote unquote better life. But we've realized that exchange is not reinvested back into us and our communities. It is taken and hijacked and centralized.
Wow, that's such a good point.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like, and this is, I grew up in a rural town, but a Walmart comes in and sets up shop, and everyone goes nuts because Walmart came into town per se. But what they systematically do is, yes, they provide short-term benefits for people, and they create a time like a division of labor where you're able to save so much time and energy of just going to one place to quote unquote shop for your daily needs. That it is a short-term value proposition for people. You can't argue with short-term results. You really can't. And that's the golden gun of fiat in itself, is like, you cannot argue with the short-term results of getting this instant feedback.
So you can't with people who have a short-term mindset, right?
Correct.
I think
yes.
That's the power of Bitcoin.
And for the key difference.
Yeah. So real quick, I think we're cutting out here between each other when we talk. So I'm just going to finish this thought, and then I'll let you go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, the short-term mindset is something that I had, and I know I had it as a kid. I wouldn't look at things as something to keep around. I would just assume that, hey, I'm going to use this, and when I don't need it anymore, I'll throw it away, and then I'll buy a new one, because there's abundance, and there's abundance of trinkets, and there's abundance of money. So why do I even have to think and consider what the value of this thing is? I'm just going to be able to buy it again in the future. And this conditioning process, right, created a very short-term thinking in almost everything I did. It extended beyond consumerism, but also to my life. It's that YOLO mentality, right?
Yeah.
So What sound money does is it starts to transform your thinking into much more long-term thinking. And then people might question, hey, yeah, it's great and convenient that Walmart is moving into town, but what's it going to do to our community? What's it going to do to our relationships? What's it going to do to our financial statuses later down the road when we are giving all our hard-earned money to it, and it's taking that money and distributing it somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
right? um so I think these are questions, and I don't have answers, but these are questions that should be asked. And I think that once you start changing your thinking much more on a long-term trajectory, these questions naturally arise, as opposed to being short-term minded. Everything is just instant gratification. You don't even consider these questions. I think that's one of the big differences. I mean, if there's one of the biggest impacts I think Bitcoin will have on people, that is, um, its implications are beyond the first order effects, right? It's going to go way beyond that. Is time preference, is the idea of people extending their time preference out
Yeah.
to longer horizons.
Yeah. And I think the reason is the it's because it's something you can trust in, and it's almost comparable to a natural law, more or less. We're all looking for that thing that we cannot change, the constraints to our own abilities. And I see that everywhere else, in the sense of, like, if you can cheat in the game, you'll always find a way to cheat. Like, it's just a natural like sense that we all want to win, whatever that goalpost is, and we'll do anything to win. And I think that's, like, look at kids on the playground, like, naturally they will do anything outside of they'll test every single boundary possible to win, until that situation is somewhat managed, or we have an agreement that we don't go past these rules, because the game's no fun then. And I think that's what's happened, is the fact of, like, we've gone so far beyond the rule set that, like, the game sucks now. This is terrible. No one wants to live like this.
Nobody wants to live in a game where everyone's cheating, right?
Exactly. Like, and that we're all so short-term thinking, and none of the good incentives, none of the virtues are being rewarded. And it's because there's no man, because
the mechanism to reward them is broken.
Yeah, it's full of the more short-term stuff. And you see the wealthy people that can override this programming, per se, and that's why they're wealthy. There's not the sense that you can't override the existing system and win. You can, but the cohesiveness by which you are traveling on those lines is so broken, and getting to that point it's just not accessible to the normal everyday person. That's why I love the Bitcoin piece. And I think that's, kind of go back to the small town analogy, is when you have reinvestment of good people that are on the ground floor of society, of small towns and communities, they're able to identify and solve problems so much quicker and faster than, the large outsourced of the state that we've participated in, that it's leaked into the politics, every way that you've seen. And it's stealing people's time and energy, giving them a short-term boost of whatever, but the people don't see the rot 10 to 15 years down the road, and until now. And it's really present. Food is another thing that is just, that's its own rabbit hole in itself too, is like the sense of, we've outsourced our ability to prepare food well and want it cheaply, quickly, that we've literally killed ourselves.
Yeah.
By eating.
Again, this is one of the areas that I think I'm going to be dedicating my life towards, not necessarily food, but the idea of personal sovereignty, right? And I think that personal sovereignty intersects with, a lot of areas of just richness and fulfillment. And part of that is food, right? Mm-hmm. to become sovereign in the food that you eat, that you cultivate. I think that is religion, right? Like the idea of having a higher order there to reorient you, I think goes goes a long way towards propelling your actions. And
Right.
if you can make sense of that and align that towards your action, I think it provides a person with a lot of sovereignty. Money, right? And so there's all these intersections here with personal sovereignty. And like I just want to explore all of those. And in those areas in which we can't be independent, at
Mm-hmm.
least let's be conscious
Mm.
of the economy we interact with, right? And
Right.
to what ends they're working towards. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
what we find now is a lot of people are supporting these corporations that hate their freedom. And to me, it's like, why are
Mm-hmm.
we subjecting ourselves to being consumers of corporations that hate our lives?
Yeah.
And it's one of those pet peeves I have, or one of those things that just irk me. And to the extent that I can bring awareness to this, or influence others to really become conscious about their consumerism, which is another thing that I think Bitcoin does. Just by the mere fact of you having to make a calculation on whether you want to spend your Bitcoin on this because it will be of higher value in the future, stops
Right.
you from making those impulse purchases, and becoming much more conscious of your consumerism. So if we can do that across the board, I think that's going to be a net benefit for humanity and society in general.
Well, an incredible benefit, because like this is my vision of okay, I love the esoteric, I love the big picture piece, and I think these conversations are so great, and it's helping me distill these pieces. But translating this conversation types of, all right, what is practically for people, how do you integrate this into your life? Now there's tons of content out there of how to do that, but in the sense of um like why, I think is the biggest question that people have answered or have thought. Why are we actually doing this? What is our ultimate goal here? And this is where I think like the Bitcoin piece integrates into the religion aspect of it. It's like it gives sovereignty, it gives sanctity back to the human spirit, really, to make some of these decisions, to participate in a system that can't be corrupted, is really, really cool. Like it's cool to interact with that.
Oh, it's
And the
empowering. I mean,
yeah,
there's so
yeah.
many things about it that are just incredible, for the human soul to participate in. It's like
Yeah.
you are for the first time, like living a life of conscious fulfillment. And it's hard to describe to those um who are in the rat race, right? It's
Hmm.
like
They
it's
can't
all.
unplug, man. They've set their goals so far, and constructive reconciliation of their existing lives is not something that they are willing to do. It's too expensive. And that's what breaks my heart more than anything, is um like the unexamined life is not worth living. That is something that has resonated with me since I was young. Is like the sheeple, if you will, this just marching forward. And I think it's fine to have goals and like constraints for yourself to just keep what you're doing. But to me, it's so obvious and so broken all around us. Like we've got to do something, to be able to right the ship. And I think it's this kind of movement of underground, just sovereignty and communities coming together, not in a dogmatic way, but in an empowering way, to say, all right, we don't know what's going to look like, but we're willing to experiment. And the beauty that might come out of that trial and error will impact people in the future. And so like I have visions of businesses adopting this, piece. Obviously, we've talked on Bitcoin a lot about this, but like communities going almost on a Bitcoin standard and surrounding themselves with like a spiritual aspect of it too, of giving people frameworks to reorganize priorities of what we're doing here. And I think there's so much potential for that. For one example, like I'm actually changing a lot of places in my life, and I'm going almost like prodigal son style back home, closer to family, and reinvigorating like a family business and starting to hopefully try to integrate the Bitcoin standard on that. And it's given me, that's just a personal example, but it's given me so much confidence, if you will, and seeing people like yourself, like Valis, like Breedlove, speak out with authority and confidence and saying like, listen, I've been backed up into a corner far enough. It ends here and I'm moving forward. Join me or not, but this is the way we are going. And I think that's the masculine spirit that you love to see and that people want to follow. And I think the more like people like ourselves can represent that in the outside world, and almost the certainty of like, listen, I'm not going to have it all, but the other way is not helping at all. And so we need to move forward with confidence and with certainty and with humility as well, and be able to try this new thing out. That's what I love to see, and that's what I want to help participate and create these structures and systems for people to do that well.
That's beautiful, bro. I think, are you still there? I think you froze up on me.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all no, I mean, I'm on the phone. Like I said, they don't want us talking to each other. But listen,
we'll do it anyways. Do it anyways.
So I think that was beautiful. I think like you said, it's being able to speak confidently about the direction not to go in, and having the humility to say, I don't know where we're going, but it's better than that path for sure. And I think that's what we're all doing here, as we explore these topics and these ideas. And I really think that's a good place to leave it off.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed this conversation. I think that you and I, we're exploring these ideas, and it's great to have someone to bounce our interpretations and understanding of what's actually happening here. And so I really appreciated the conversation, enjoyed it thoroughly.
Michael, I really appreciate it, man. This is it's been great to connect. Really has been. It's been an honor.
Awesome, man. So maybe we can do it again. I would love to check back with you, have another conversation, and explore these thoughts a little bit more.